G'day, Ben. Mate, pleasure to meet you. And before we jump into this, can you tell everyone what you do and why you do it?
I cook for a living.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. That's the essence of what I do, but it's probably quite a lot broader than that. I run a company called Attica. I have 40 full-time employees, and we cook for 50 guests 5 nights a week. And that's what I do. That's part of what I do. So running that company with my wife, 𝐂𝐚𝐩𝐿.
You work with your partner?
Yeah.
How's that?
It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
I work with my partner as well, and it's amazing, but it's also there's issues or there's challenges. We disagree on certain things.
Okay.
And you should never take it home, but we take it home.
How do you resolve your disagreements?
I let her win.
Okay.
How about yourself? How do you resolve challenges?
I think we'll have like a reasoned discussion around it until it kind of just gets thrashed out to what the obvious choice is.
Yeah.
That's probably, but we also, it's not just 𝐂𝐚𝐩 and I making decisions. It's 𝐂𝐚𝐩 and I making decisions with a bunch of experts. It's 𝐂𝐚𝐩 and I making decisions with our accountant, our lawyer, our management team, our whole team. I guess probably ultimately though, we both know when it comes down to it and a decision has to be made and it's sort of like a 50-50 call. I'm very comfortable making that decision.
Yeah. Do you think your wife has helped you build the business?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And particularly in the last 5 years. And my wife is responsible for the company surviving during the lockdowns, undoubtedly.
Oh, really?
It was her actions, her positivity.
How so?
She has a really unique skill set that a lot of restaurants don't have access to. And I think when that first lockdown was coming, I was kind of a new owner. I'd only owned the restaurant, I think, at that point for about 3 or 4 years, even though I'd been working there for a decade. I'd taken ownership of it. And
sorry, did you buy Attica?
I did, yeah. I was first an employee at Attica. I answered a job in the newspaper for a chef.
Incredible.
Back when there were jobs in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And,
that's going back a bit.
It is. That's 2005. Yeah. And I got the job and then I worked for somebody else for a decade. So I was the head chef, but I had no financial interest in the business until I had the opportunity to buy it. I brought it. And then I guess that's 2000. Yeah, that's like 3 or 4 years later, COVID comes and, there's a moment where I'm certain that we will lose everything and I'm despairing.
It was a wild time.
It was. And I'm sure this is the story of many people, you know, and I'm internalizing. It's my birthday actually. And
today?
No, on that moment where I knew that we'd have to close.
Oh, wow.
And we cancelled 3 months of reservations. And I just couldn't see how any kind of initiative around takeaway food could support 40 employees and just couldn't see it. And so I was feeling sorry for myself and despairing. And she was just kind of constantly saying, let's just give it a go. Let's give it a crack. Are you prepared to lose everything you worked so hard for? We don't have anything to lose. And she just repeatedly said that. And I kind of wasn't listening. And then a friend of mine, Bruce Dunlevy, he's like an investment guy from San Francisco, Benchmark Capital. And he emailed me and he said, just lead with positivity. It was a very short email.
Yeah.
Be unrelenting, I think he said. And I woke up to that this morning and I thought, well, that's it. So, I had to kind of shake myself. I hadn't really been listening to her. Yeah. And
always listen to your wife.
Well, yeah. I mean, clearly. And so I would credit her. And it wasn't just that initial push to really make me reconsider doing this thing, but it was also then the build of the infrastructure. We did delivery. We had 10 waiters on the road as delivery drivers every night.
Oh, really? So you actually did it yourself? You didn't use Providor, I think it was called?
No. We couldn't afford to use any of those third parties. They take too much of a cut. Yeah, and the margins are really fine in ambitious restaurants like ours. And so I just knew we wouldn't survive if we were even losing 10% or 15%. It's not there, So to take 30 on one of the big delivery apps is not a possibility. And we really couldn't charge any more than we were charging. And so we decided we'd do everything ourselves. She organised the IT infrastructure with our partner. It had to kind of be built within a week.
Huh.
She'd organised all the delivery routes, and it's pretty complex. About 120 deliveries of food, hot food a night, plus about 100 pickups. Scheduling all of that, having no system for that.
There's a lot of variables in that.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was, it was a baptism of fire, and absolutely there was a lot of teething problems. But in essence, we went from closing a company and a whole way of thinking, a way of life for us and work, to starting and executing two whole new businesses within 1 week.
Obviously, COVID was a terrible thing, but it forced businesses to pivot because they were so comfortable with what they were doing.
Yes.
Then they had to reinvent themselves, and sometimes that's a good thing. I know it was a terrible thing, but
no, it was a good thing. For us, it was a good thing.
Yeah, there's a positive over negative.
Yep.
And with COVID, did you let go of any staff? Did you retain the full 40 chefs?
Yeah, so I had this sort of naive ambition. It was a private one that I really didn't admit to anybody but Kylie early, was that I would have called this whole time a success if we could retain every single one of those employees on full salary and full hours. And we not only did that, but we actually employed another 10 on top of that to meet demand because it got so crazy. There was a day, I've never told anybody this, it was a day, Father's Day, where we had 900 orders. And we're a tiny organization. You've got it, it's all handmade.
Yeah.
And Matt, our head chef, and I were out on the road that day. We did 120 deliveries ourselves. It was just an extraordinary hustle. And so what we found with the takeaway business and with the other initiatives, we started a t-shirt company, we did a pottery studio, we did a bakery.
Are they still going?
No. I mean, no. Sadly, all of those things that we built, but especially the takeaway. We actually thought that takeaway, and I think this was kind of a global feeling amongst restaurateurs, that takeaway would be an amazing kind of sideline business for restaurants, which have always been as sort of frail as Fabergé eggs, kind of at the best of times.
Yeah.
But what we found pretty suddenly, it was feast or famine. As soon as the lockdowns would ease, there'd be nobody who wanted to take away. Everybody wanted to return to restaurants.
Yeah.
And I understand that desire as a consumer. And ultimately, it became too hard to do both things properly at once.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, were you more profitable during COVID or now, for example?
Oh, if you balanced out across the years, no, we didn't make a loss, but it literally was, revenue up 40%.
Yeah.
Higher than it had ever been.
It's incredible.
Yeah. During the lockdowns, but then down, 85, 90% at its lowest. So it was kind of like this, whereas, Attica's quite a stable business generally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was incredible. I always say it was incredible highs and incredible lows. But it was also this one moment for just the most pure learning. This experience you couldn't actually manufacture that for people. No.
And what's the main thing you've learned from that whole period? Is it that you can pivot, that business can pivot in different directions? What are things you've learned?
I think I've always known how to survive. I think I knew that before that.
Yeah.
I think I'm a chef, that it's a tough gig.
Yeah, I could never do what you do. Chefing is one of the toughest industries in the world.
It is, but if it was your great love,
True.
I'm sure you could.
True. Yeah. You got to have that passion.
It's just that it's my love. It's not that
obsession.
Yeah. It's that thing that I've put everything into. But yeah, kind of. I've known how to survive, but it was a clarifying time in that everything fell away.
Yeah.
It was like in those moments, in those first weeks, in those days, as those months build on, there was no noise. There was no chatter. It was just the pure focus of our people, of the community, and our company. And there was very little distraction. And you'd remember this as well. People were so available and present. And so I was like, wow, this is incredible. I want to remember this. And as I came out of it, I was like, I don't want to return to a lot of what I would call bullshit. A lot of things that I used to do. I don't I don't want to return to that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I call it a stock take of the bullshit.
I completely agree with you. I remember when COVID kicked in, I looked at our businesses across the globe and I'm like, holy crap, we're in deep shit here. And then, as you know, it went it's like basically like a yo-yo. Everything went down. I'm like, okay, we're going to start letting people go. We can't survive. And then everything just kind of bounced back. It was just, and the lessons were, we need to be more flexible. We need to be pivot faster, and we need to move quicker. They're the things we learned in.
I think moving quicker is a huge one.
Huge. If you can move fast in business, you can almost do anything.
Yes.
It's so important. But when you're obsessed in business, it's a lot easier to move fast, I find.
It is.
And from what I've gathered, and you're very obsessed with what you do. And where did that obsession come from?
I think it's innate. I think, I think it doesn't matter if it's cooking or writing or friendships or, hobbies. Like it's just I can't help but kind of be obsessed about them. It doesn't mean that I'm going to excel at all those things, but I'm really going to give it a crack and try, and just try to be super consistent. But what pushes you though? Is it within or is curiosity? It is within. Nobody pushes me. I feel no sense of pressure other than the pressure that I put upon myself. And I think if you can hit a really high standard, just generally, it does make it easier because those sort of societal expectations or norms or pressures that people feel really don't matter. If you're setting your own agenda and you're setting your own standard, and I know it's not possible for everybody, but it is possible in almost everybody's part of their life at least. For me as an owner of a company, I own the company not because I have this intense desire to own the company. I have a really intense desire to protect the creative work I do. Therefore, owning the company is the only way to guarantee that can't be messed with.
But do you enjoy the business side of the business, or do you prefer the creative side, or both?
I used to hate the business side. I used to think that wasn't my place. I had some real hang-ups, and there's sort of a system of how we're taught as cooks as well, that the business is best left up to the adults, and we don't, chefs are stupid or chefs don't understand numbers. And because I was a deeply creative person and focused on creative as I built the earlier part of my career, I thought that it wasn't for me. Yeah. And I even thought that money and making money and talking about business is kind of a dirty thing and super boring and not creative at all. I really had the wrong way about it. I come from a punk and skateboarding and a DIY background, and I come from very little. Yeah. And so
has your perception changed, though?
Absolutely, completely and utterly changed.
Good. We can be friends.
No, it has to change. And I realized that I was really limiting myself and hurting myself. And in fact, that some of the bad things that were happening to me were happening because I had a lack of confidence in kind of coming to some of this stuff, into an interest in business. So when I was 39, I bought the restaurant, which is quite old, in my opinion, to own the restaurant after being celebrated for cooking for a decade. When I purchased it, I was terrified of it. So I just kind of applied the creativity that has a cook to business. Now, I think you made a lot of mistakes, but essentially, my model has never been to be one of the best restaurants in the world. It was to be one of the best small businesses in the world. So there's a pretty strong point of difference there.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. Because if we just continue to follow, whatever the history of restaurants is, I don't think that's really they're not good lessons for the future necessarily. Some of them are, but not all of them.
Yeah.
And so that fear of being bad at business and that fear and a deep fear of going broke have been pretty big motivators and drivers of the success of my business. Yeah. And I've learned to absolutely love business and realize that everything can have a creative element, and that
business can be creative.
So creative.
There's a bit of a stereotype that business is just boring numbers, but you can be very creative with it. That's why I love business. You can you can do it. You can do what you want with it.
Yes.
In theory, you can bend it to your own will, and you can create whatever you want to create. It's to me, it's a game, and if you play the game well and you enjoy it, it's the most amazing thing ever.
I couldn't agree more.
Are you on the tools at the Attica, or do you?
Yeah. In a creative role more than a production role.
Okay.
And so I guess probably, if you wanted like an official term, I don't have an official term, but if you wanted an official term for what I do, it's some sort of creative director.
Okay, yeah.
Driving the creativity of the enterprise in the kitchen with its communication, with anything external it does, combined with Kylie as well, who has great creative ideas, even though she doesn't call herself a creative person. And then so developing the dishes, developing the concepts, and Attica has an enormous network of collaborators and artists and musicians, makers, writers, people who we're 40 employees, but there's probably 300 or 400 other people that contribute to it, suppliers. And so I'm really connected to that community as well. And we're always trying to bring people in to educate us and to make the work more meaningful. But I think, business is just such an interesting thing to apply creativity to, because for me, the definition of business is problems, and it's not about whether or not you're going to have problems or not. You're going to have problems, but it's how you solve them.
And there's always a solution.
There is, and so long as you're with good people, that's kind of, and I think it's who you solve them with and how you solve. So I really like that sense of overcoming that business provides people. It's not if you're going to have a problem, you're going to have a problem.
You just touched on it. How do you find, and this is always the biggest challenge in my business, is how do you find good people or the best people to suit you and your working style?
Well, I've found that by building a really, really strong culture, and not one that's just for posturing on social media, like a really intrinsic, deep, values-based culture with good intentions.
Yep.
It naturally attracts people who hear about that and want to be a part of that. And so that's probably one of the biggest pulls of talent, is that, the restaurant's run very differently. It tries to be exceptionally respectful. And so people who sometimes have had a hard time in hospitality might want to come, or younger people who have heard about, who have a different set of values, perhaps, more sophisticated than the ones that I grew up with, naturally want to come. And I guess that reputation or that knowledge means that we always have great people to work with. Then, of course, we're exceptional at selecting people. When we select somebody, we'll work with them as well. Like, I don't expect somebody to come to Attica and to measure up immediately. You need to give people time. They need to be trained, no matter if they've been in the industry for a long time or not. And I think the most powerful tool that we have is through demonstrable actions. I don't just ask for certain things in certain ways. I practice them, and it's visible. So we have a very simple rule: say hello, how are you, to every single person in the building every single day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Every single person?
Every single person. And so I have to live that value.
Yeah.
I have to go, hi, how are you? How was your day? How's your day? With every single person. Now, I don't expect a straight positive answer every time, because people are are experiencing life. So sometimes I have to be prepared.
They're like, oh, Ben's coming. Oh, put your head down.
No, not at all. But like somebody might say, well, you know what? Actually, day's been a bit tough.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you okay? And, is there anything I can do for you? And so it's that, but that's just a little thing. And it's one of, dozens of small details that pulls people out of their shell, makes them, as they join, because we have people, I start first generally. I'm there at 8:39, and there's people coming at 10 and 11
in the
and
morning
12.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay. What time do you finish normally?
I might finish at like 8,
Yeah, it's a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
It's a long day. It's long.
It is. I always start work from home at probably 6:30, 6. And I probably work after I've finished at the restaurant too, or my choice. But yeah, I think, that, hey, because in restaurants there's two teams. There's one team, but there's a front of house team and a kitchen team, and they are run by different managers. They require different personality types. The work is incredibly different. One, you have to expend a lot of social energy. The other, you can kind of be like a hermit crab if you want to be, the kitchen. And so by sort of not forcing, but by encouraging those two groups of people to say hello to each other, to have an exchange, it just sort of builds it's just like it's muscle memory. It builds camaraderie and a little bit of connectedness. And when you start your shift and you're going around to say hello to everybody, you become present in it rather than just kind of going straight to the task.
Yeah. Very different. I used to work in restaurants in my early 20s.
Okay.
For 5 years, and very, very different environment. Chefs yelling at the front of house staff. It was literally, and I worked as front of house as a waiter, and then I worked as a dishie.
Yep. Both really tough jobs.
Yeah, they actually were tough jobs. I don't think we get the credit where credit was due, but they were tough jobs. And it was just abuse. But I became so used to it that it was just became normality at the time. So to hear that your place is very different is
what's devastating about your story just then is not that you got abused. That's shitty, but that you left. You know what I mean? That you left. And I'm not sure if it was because of the abuse you copped.
No, I studied hospitality, so I was actually all in at one stage.
Yeah.
The reason I left, actually, it wasn't because of the abuse. The hours weren't great. That's all. It was just the hours weren't good.
The hours are tough. Yeah.
Hours are tough. For me, you really have to love it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the hours, the abuse, whatever a part of hospitality you don't enjoy is the reason why a lot of great people like yourself leave, though. And I suppose part of the change that we want to be a part of, and we are a part of at Attica, is wanting to kind of resolve that, because those hours, if it was just because you're working from 5 till midnight and that's when all your friends are socializing, there's sometimes not a lot that can be done about that in hospitality. But setting people up so that for example, all of our employees are on a 4-day week.
You do 4 days a week?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's been now for 7 years.
He's going to come work for you. That's great.
It's so that you have a life, and you deserve a life. You deserve to be able to hold down a relationship as a hospitality worker and be able to go to the gym and be fairly paid.
Yeah.
So those things are really crucial because those are kind of fundamentals, and you're asking how people, how we attract people. That's probably a way that we attract people too, but it wasn't done like that. It was literally done. I remember, when I was 40, I turned 40, I'm 47. I worked out that I'd already done, the retirement age hours of a 65-year-old at 40. I'd already done that much work. And that's a lot of kilometers on your body.
It is. Especially with a lack of sleep.
Yeah, and I wasn't paid for them. And I was like, you know what, that doesn't feel that good. What can I do? What can I do about that? Well, I can make sure that people are living a more balanced life than perhaps my first 25 years.
You have a very successful business in Attica. Have you ever thought about expanding it to, say, Sydney or Brisbane, or you want to keep it within Melbourne at this stage?
Attica is a super Melbourne thing. It feels like this is it feels like this is the only city that this could exist in the world.
Really?
It
wouldn't work in Sydney?
I don't think so. No, we have a lot of customers from Sydney, but it's tough in Sydney for restaurants. It's maybe a more fashionable market. In Melbourne, the beauty of the Melbourne dining scene is that the customers support restaurants for decades. And when I was thinking about, where I could live and what I could do, I looked at, great restaurants that have been around for way longer than Attica. Restaurants like Flower Drum, have been around since the 70s. And also Francois, another great restaurant, have been around since the 70s. Yeah. I'm like, that's cool because customers keep coming back to them every 6 months, every year. And that's the sort of, I want to be a part of a community where age is something that's a positive rather than just all newness. For me, that was really crucial and because what that says to me is that that's a really sophisticated dining city.
Mm.
You know, that new things can come in and the hot new things can come in, and that's cool as well. Because you always, you know, if you're in a thriving industry, there's always opportunities for people coming up through the ranks, you know, that they're getting their shot. But at the same time, if you live in a really positive restaurant city, it should also be able to accommodate restaurants that are historical, you know. And that's what's so great about Melbourne.
So in that case, what's next for you? Because as business owners, for me personally, I get bored if I don't keep expanding or doing new businesses.
Okay.
Is it the creativity that keeps you sane?
I think it's the people, you know, like I like to work closely with the team. You know, that's, we have a close relationship and that keeps the quality super high. Like we're uber focused on quality.
Yeah.
You know,
I've been at Attica multiple times.
Thank you.
It's another level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, if I opened another business, I'd have to imagine that I would be at Attica 50% less.
Correct. Yeah.
And I'm not sure that definitely wouldn't have a 50% drop off in quality. It could have a 10% or 15%. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not saying that I'm the number one driver of quality because the team very much are. But I'm there with Kylie. Both of us are there frequently to motivate to…
It would drop. Quality would definitely drop.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you know, we're there to mentor and support the team and help them execute this vision together, you know. And I guess probably for me, whilst I very much doubt that Attica will be the only business that I ever do. Maybe if I was going to do another business, it wouldn't be a restaurant.
Okay. You touched on this earlier about sleep and healthy lifestyle. As a chef, how is your health generally? And how is your sleep, more importantly?
It's pretty good. I'd say I get 7 hours.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised. I thought you were going to say 4 hours, if that. But
no, well, there's for the bigger part of my life, it was 4 hours, 5 hours, 3 hours for a huge part of my life. But I realized that was probably going to kill me. So, and I wasn't a super fun person to be around.
Yeah.
There's a time at Attica where I was working 100-hour weeks regularly.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to work 100 hours. You know, like it's actually hard to actually just, there's only so many hours, you know.
You break it down, that's 7 days a week. What's that, 13, 14 hours a day?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not sustainable for
anyone. It's not sustainable, and I did it for a really long time. And I fell into a deep depression through it, and so I know never to go back there. So I'm still prepared to work long hours because it's my company and it's what I enjoy, and there's a lot of different parts to it now too. And we run a separate business called the Venture Initiative, which is, you know, really about brand ambassadorships and communications and doing other stuff, I guess, you know, creating stuff for people. And I like that work too. But yeah, I had to get more sleep, and that's just a fact. You know, I thought I was one of those 1% of people that can survive on 4 hours.
Are you one of those?
I thought I was, but I realized that the statistics would say that I'm absolutely not.
Are you one of those people that can fall asleep straight away and then stay asleep for 7 hours?
No, I'm not that good a sleeper, but I generally can. I probably sleep through half the time. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, but I'll go and go back to sleep. So I'd say I've been practicing sleeping better, I would say, in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I'm a work in progress.
Okay.
Sleep is obviously so important, and I take magnesium, I take melatonin, and I still struggle with sleep.
Okay.
I think I need to meditate more, but that's a whole different story.
I don't do any of that. I don't take any supplements. I don't do any meditation, and I'm like not a very chill person. So I'm not sure that
So imagine if you did. You'd probably go to sleep in 5 minutes.
I'm not sure. Maybe. But in terms of lifestyle, I mean, my lifestyle has varied a fair bit, like through time. Often when you're working incredibly long hours like I was, you're eating absolute rubbish.
I'm going to say, how's your diet?
Not great, not great. But also, masking eating bad was the fact that I was on my feet for probably 95 of those 100 hours.
So you're basically exercising, doing the hours.
Yeah.
Doing the steps.
Yes.
And then the bad diet is being compensated by the exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. But in recent months, I've had a real turn. And I've had sort of like, my weight has fluctuated throughout my life a little. Like I've been overweight several times and I had to lose the weight. I am, yeah. And I'm as lean as I've been since I was in my 20s right now. I've just lost 12 kilos.
Really?
Yes.
How'd you lose 12 kilos?
Just by going into a calorie deficit.
What's the old saying? Eat more, eat less, do more.
Yeah.
It was what Christian Bale said when he lost, 20 kilos for a movie. He goes, I just ate less and I did more. But is that sustainable though? That's the question.
It is sustainable. I mean, I don't need to lose more weight. I'm pretty happy with the weight that I'm at. But I put the weight on when I was writing a book, which took 2 years. And that
masterpiece. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so that time had to come from somewhere. So I wrote the book from 5:30 a.m. till 9:30, 7 days a week for a year without a day off.
And then went to work after that.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
And so I kind of gained weight because I was just in survival mode a little bit.
Just snacking.
Yep. And then, I always knew that I had to return to kind of like a healthier weight and exercise. And I just put it off and I put it off and I put it off. And I think it was 2 months out from the book being released. And I was like, hey, you got to do something. And literally it's nothing really, for me, it's nothing about looking good.
Yeah.
It's actually just about feeling good in my mind, and I can be vicious on myself internally. So it's felt good to kind of eat minimally and eat well, like really well, eat a lot of vegetables.
So were you fasting? So were you doing?
No, I don't fast. I just, I knew what my daily calories should be to lose weight. And nobody listening thinks this is a good idea, but this is just what I did, and I'd undercut it. That's it.
Okay. Easy. Yeah. You stopped drinking alcohol?
No drink, no sugar, no alcohol, very little gluten, next to no bread. And this time, for the first time, I ate more protein.
Basically keto diet. Keto.
I guess it kind of was, without any thought process about what it was.
Yep.
Just, I know an egg is 70 calories. I know that I can eat 2 or 3 of those and be fine. I eat a lot of vegetables. I eat some chicken. I drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
I'll watch my dairy intake. I won't really eat cheese. This is through that time. I'm starting to relax it a little bit now, but probably the easiest way to say is that if I have my wife loves to eat in restaurants, and so do I. Maybe not to the extent that she does, but so restaurants are certainly always going to be a part of our lives. But I won't go and have a big meal somewhere and then double down the next day with a big meal. No way.
Yeah.
I will eat minimally and cleanly and raw vegetables and
it's very surprising for a chef.
It is, but I think I'm aware that one of the things that affects performance and my performance is my physical state, and because that affects my mental state, and therefore to actually have a clear mind and to have a happy sort of sense of self and to create anything properly, it's better if I can be living a healthy lifestyle.
No, I completely agree with you. I remember if I eat bread or pasta, I turn into the marshmallow man. And I love bread and pasta.
Too, man.
Love it. But it just doesn't work well with my body.
Yeah.
So I go meat, vegetables, and fruit.
Yeah.
That's all I eat. And I love cheese, by the way. And I stopped drinking alcohol for a year. Best thing I did. But I do miss it. I'm not going to lie to you. But I lost lots of weight, felt better, more motivated, more energy. So I'm a believer, but it's just not as much fun.
It's not as much fun. And I mean, it's funny what I look forward, but when you can have everything, nothing is as good.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I'm thinking about, I have this very kind of bizarre breakfast routine, which is essentially I have a very beautiful ceramic coated nonstick pan, not a Teflon one. That's terrible.
Yeah, very well done.
It's like a beautiful pan forever. Yeah. It's a forever pan. And I'll take it and I'll hit it.
Everyone needs a forever pan.
They do need a forever pan. This is a life-changing pan. And I spray just a tiny, tiny little bit of olive oil in that pan. I'm talking minimal, and I crack a really great egg into that pan. I fry it on both sides.
Yeah, nice.
And then I have that on a small piece of rye bread.
Oh.
And I feel like it makes me so happy. It's but it's so weird that something so good crack of salt and pepper on it, I should say.
All you need is a bit of avocado on the side and you're done.
Yeah. I don't know, food has been more enjoyable actually, because when I've had something, I think when, the overstimulation is a big thing for chefs. you know, palate overstimulation, like we get to eat anything we want. And so then everything can become boring. And also if you don't watch that, then you can kind of go too far and kind of overseason. So it's good to have these periods of sort of pulling back from, I mean, you know, being in a kitchen can be so excessive, you know, food-wise.
Oh, I can imagine. So you got your diet under control. How do you now exercise? Because I know you're a skateboarder.
Yep.
Is that your main form of exercise? Or
Probably in winter, snowboarding is a really big snowboarder.
Okay.
Really big fan of snowboarding. I've got this kind of rotating cast of hobbies. I'd say there's probably 10 things. And at any one time in my life across 5-year period, it'd be a different thing that I'm doing.
You're not hitting the gym every morning?
No,
it's not your thing?
I go to the gym. I see a personal trainer once a week. And I should be going a couple of more times myself. Yeah. But that's more of I really love this guy's name's Al. He's the absolute best. And that's almost like a social catch up now. I mean, we work out.
He spent the whole time chatting.
We do. We yak about life. Sometimes one of my daughters comes.
I had that with my PT. I was like, I can't talk to anyone. I need to exercise.
Yeah. I always feel stiff afterwards. So I would judge as if it's by the fact that it hurts. But I'd like to go to the gym. I walk a lot. I walk to work. It's not far, but like I walk to and from work. There's a work vehicle at work. So if I need to go out and the vehicle is there. Lately, I've been doing a lot of landscaping at my house. So I say active, you know, it's important. I can't run. My knees don't allow it. I'd love to be able to run. I ride bikes a lot. Cycling has been pretty much a lifelong habit. So, you know, a variety of things.
So basically moving. If
moving, but fun. I go to the gym and I really like seeing Al, the trainer, but going to the gym is just no kind of fun as an idea for me.
Yeah,
but like skateboarding or snowboarding or mountain biking or something where there's like some adrenaline.
Yeah. That's your cup of tea.
Outside, surfing.
Well, it's the old blue zone mentality. People in the blue zones don't go to the gym. They move. They might look after the garden. They walk up a hill. They move.
Okay.
And that's why they're living well beyond 100 years of age.
Right.
And that's exactly what you're doing. You're moving.
Yes.
And your diet's on point. So talking about diet, I've got one last question for you.
Yep.
If you had to choose one meal for the rest of your life, keeping in account that you want to live a very long time.
Yes.
What would you eat?
I mean, I've described that toast and egg. That's right up there. I mean, my mind immediately goes to lasagna, but that's not something that I can eat and expect to be around for a long time. So it's not going to be that. I think like there's two things. There's I like to make some kind of what I would call a compound salad, which is like a bunch of stuff in the fridge. So let's take a head of broccoli. I'll chop it up roughly, blanch it in boiling salted water, drain it. Yeah. Take something else like half a bunch of spring onions, maybe a can of cannellini beans, maybe something else. Like this is about making something quick and easy but super healthy. Maybe some pre-prepared kimchi, maybe a grated carrot,
a bit of everything in
there. A bit of lemon.
Yeah,
it's like a chopped salad or almost like a Cobb salad that I would mix.
Yeah.
I would tend to put ingredients in it that can hold up so I could have it the next day as well. If I put tomatoes in it, for example, it's gonna die.
Any protein in this?
Yeah, you could put chicken in it for sure, like poached chicken breast or something like that, or grilled chicken. So that would be kind of one thing that I know that is really good for me and that is delicious. Yeah. Small amount of olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper, some sort of dressing, but a healthy dressing. And I don't ever use, like in my diet, I don't use mayonnaise. I use substitute mayonnaise with yogurt, with natural yogurt, if I'm going to use that. So that would be one thing. And then the other thing that I think is just super useful and delicious to have is just a bunch of boiled eggs in your fridge.
I love eggs.
Yeah.
I could eat eggs all day.
Me too.
Yeah, okay.
So if I'm hungry, and I've got to boil, like rather than kind of going to the pantry and going for something that, you know, when we get really hungry, like if you're working out in the backyard or going for, you know, sport and you come back and you're starving because whatever the timing with your meal is a little bit off. So you've got a real craving just to eat anything. And rather than grabbing, I don't know, like a bowl of cereal or something that's processed, I If I've got a hard-boiled egg, then I'm going to go to that egg.
But you know what they call eggs? They call eggs nature's multivitamin.
Yes.
Because they're obviously so good for you.
They are, and they fill me. But also there's a whole heap of things you can do with a boiled egg. You know, you can peel it, slice it. I like to put a little salt and pepper and a little hot sauce, Frank's hot sauce, which is available everywhere, which is super vinegary and delicious. So, and then they're just good to have if you want to make a meal from them too, you know. So I'd suggest that would probably be, those are two things that I'd always have around.
So basically a chopped salad, some protein could be some chicken.
Yep.
And then some eggs.
Yes.
Amazing. Love that. Ben, having read your book, Uses for Obsession, what possessed you to write a book? Like, I've always wanted to write one, but I'm like, it's so much work to do this.
Yeah.
Like, what was your reason for putting together this?
Well, firstly, writing a book is, you know, in most contexts, it's not about the author wanting to make money. So there's got to be.
You do not do it for money.
No. So there's got to be.
Let's put that out there.
There's got to be something that you want to share or a story you want to tell. And for me, you know, I think for me, the solution to most problems is creativity, you know, and I think that the use of creativity to solve problems is kind of the central theme of the book. Another angle of the book is that I'm from a family of storytellers, and sharing stories and sharing a journey around a table or around a fire was the way that my backcountry family dealt with the issues of the day. You know, how they brought them out into the light, how they made fun of them. There's a lot of hardship in farming where I came from.
What kind of farm do you have?
Like a sheep and cattle farm.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So that's a kind of a central.
You learn a lot living on a farm.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, that's how you learn to fix things and how do you learn to survive.
And to be a good human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to get along with your neighbors, you know.
That is true.
And so that's kind of, you know, the book is also very much about having fun and the joy of life. And if there's one thing that I would have liked that I hope that I've done is to impart a little wisdom on people who read it and just go, you know what, I really think there's a problem, there's a solution for every problem. And so whilst, you know, I'm critical in the book at times, I'll never have a whinge and then not leave the reader with a solution. That's kind of essential to me. What's one
thing the readers will take away from this book? Like, what's one thing that you hope they take away?
You should never give up. You know, that you can keep coming back and keep coming back. And there's always kind of a way through, you know. And if you lead with empathy and kindness, you'll always have friends as well. And that's one of the greatest things in life.
Yeah, agreed. Now, you own one of the most world-renowned restaurants in the world, Attica. But let's put that to the side. Can you give me the top 5 restaurants, in your personal opinion, in Melbourne? Restaurants that you love to dine at.
So, I mean, I think, you know, we were talking about Flower Drum earlier. So I'm going to Flower Drum tonight, actually.
Flower Drum.
Me too.
It's an institution.
It is. I mean, the cooking is so amazing.
Yeah.
And the continuity of their service and its elegance is really great. They're a great role model for restaurants like mine.
Yeah. It's funny when you walk in there, people are having birthdays or business deals. It's just a unique group of people in there.
People who grew up there, you know. I've met people that have grown up there. The Flower Drum is a great place. I love any restaurant by Andrew McConnell, you know, from Gimlet to Supernormal to Cumulus. His restaurants are always fantastic. And then there's lower key places as well that I really like. I think Andrew's Hamburgers in Albert Park is the best hamburger in the world.
Okay, I'm going to try that.
And it's an ultra-Australian hamburger. They've been going since the 1950s.
Oh, wow.
It's really a meal, but it's actually a really, like, it's not something you eat every day.
It's a proper hamburger.
It is. It's healthy, man. Like, nice. It's a high-calorie thing, but it's like...
No, I'm going to go smash one.
It's incredible. Here's my recommendation to you. Go get Andrew's Hamburger, walk 200 meters to there's a park just around the corner.
Yeah. Sit there.
If you're feeling like a special treat to sit in the park with that hamburger and a glass of champagne, it's a pretty amazing thing.
I'm going to do that.
I love that. Calamera Souvlaki Art in Oakley does the best souvlaki in Australia, hands down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really amazing. And they do a pork souvlaki, which is particularly good. They're wonderful people, so I'm always happy to be recommending them. Goodness me, there's so many things. You know what? I'm going to give you a little sleeper tip here as well. There's a place in Clayton called For Heaven's Steaks.
For Heaven's Steaks.
Yeah, and that is a steak sandwich that's worth driving however long it takes to get to that neighborhood. It's a real tradie like love spot, but they go there for a reason. It's an amazing steak sandwich. Heaven Steaks.
Okay, excellent. And one more?
I really like Francois in South Yarra. Now, that's not going to surprise anybody. It is an institution, but let me tell you why it's so great. First of all, it's maintained its standards for a ridiculously long period of time. They care about where they buy their food from. It's got the best wines by the glass in Melbourne, in my opinion. It's also got an incredible cellar, but you can go there and just have a great glass of wine, and that's not necessarily super common. They import a lot of wine from France. But my number one thing that I love about Francois is that I love to go there, and hopefully I'm there at about 9:30, 10, and you just see the cross-section of the Melbourne community there. You see really wealthy people who are in this 80s coming in for dinner at 10 p.m.,
Yeah.
You see young couples out on dates, and you see people that maybe do illegal business for their income. I'm not sure, but
it's a mismatch of people,
and it's beautiful, And I've had some outrageously good times there.
Same. I go there for business lunches, and it's like always, you got, like I said, 80-year-olds, and then young people, and then people doing business. It's just a very diverse group of people.
It's the most diverse dining room, I think, in town.
Yeah, agreed. Mate, that was great. Thank you so much. And
Pleasure.
thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.